of the Hybrid World Tech Conference. This is the final few sessions of Hybrid World Day 1, and hasn't it been really awesome and exciting so far? I've learnt so much. My brain is a filled wet sponge. I can't wait to squeeze it out and see what happens. My name is Ray Johnston. I'm the editor of Gizmodo Australia. I'm also a host on That Startup Show, and I have an Indigenous Science Kids program in the works with NITV as well. So this kind of conference is just an absolute melting pot of all my interests, and I'm so thrilled to be here and to be introducing to you some incredible ideas on the stage today. I do want to start by saying Mangdanguru, which is thank you in my language, Wiradjuri language, to Jack for his welcome to country this morning. And I do want to acknowledge all my Aboriginal brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles that might be in the audience with us today. We are on Aboriginal land, and it's important to not only acknowledge that, but be aware of it and really be grateful for the opportunities that we are afforded by the sacrifices that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have made in this country. Now, on to the challenge. But before I talk about the specifics of this challenge, I do want to talk to you a little bit about Ignite SA. Now, Ignite SA is a partnership between the state government and Uni SA to support the development of innovative applications using South Australia's high-speed advanced networks. Very lucky to have them. I'm very jealous. South Australia is the first international city to join the growing US Ignite Smart Gigabit Communities program. And that's creating new opportunities for innovative businesses to collaborate and share information with 24 other US Ignite communities. The first of many challenges, Ignite SA's Gigabit Challenge Preserve, worked with the South Australian Museum to ask local developers, entrepreneurs, students, hackers, and other creative minds to pitch an idea that will give the South Australia Museum's Australian Aboriginal Culture Collection high visibility. Now, one of the largest and most comprehensive collections of Australian Aboriginal culture in the world, the 30,000 artefacts are obviously of great significance to Aboriginal cultural heritage. But due to the size of the collection, the museum can only display about 5% of it at any one time. The rest of it is hidden away. Now, during this session, you will hear from 3 talented teams who will pitch their idea on how they propose to share this important collection with the world. And the winner will receive $20,000 to develop their idea into a functional platform that could potentially be used by other digital humanities collections across the world. We're talking about some important things here today. They will also receive a further $5,000 to attend a global conference to possibly pitch their idea on a global stage. So this is a bit of a practice run for them today. We will welcome our guests today, including the judges. We've got the Director of Aboriginal Affairs and Reconciliation from the Department of Premier and Cabinet, Kirsty Parker. We have former Engineering Director of Google ANZ and founder of OzOcean, Alan Noble. We've got the CEO of Leap Sheep and entrepreneur in residence at Uni SA's Innovation and Collaboration Centre, Kirk Drage. And the Head of Humanities at the South Australia Museum, Professor John Cardy, who's an excellent tour guide. I need to let you know that. Now, to kick things off, please watch this short video about the challenge.
95% of our collections are locked away in a warehouse. You can't see them. We have the capacity to tear the walls down and to reveal those objects respectfully to the world.
These collections tell us the greatest story never told. We still haven't found, I think, confident, honest, and creative ways to speak about our history.
Matter of work I did. That's why we're here. Is to create a fire, ignite something that we can do together.
Information, ideas, and the technology to share them has the power to bring people together.
Storytelling is what grabs people. That's what leaves them with an idea and a thought.
We are embarking on a hugely ambitious endeavour to rethink our responsibilities to and our relationships with the first people of this country.
Whatever wins has to be a community effort.
This isn't about tech, this is about recognising and celebrating the oldest living culture in the world.
The way that museums in the future will no longer be a physical space that we think about, but more traversing the boundaries of time and space and see it from that perspective.
The real museum is out in the country. It goes much beyond the 30,000 pieces of artifacts that the museum has in its collection, and that's what everybody needs to look at.
It's an exciting opportunity.
And now I would like to introduce our first participant in today's pitching competition. Daesh Milani, please welcome to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, judges, and welcome, everyone. I'm happy that you could be here for this. I went to the initial meeting of the Ignite event with an open mind and just trying to understand what we had as far as the physical collection and the best way to understand how to bring the story of the Kaurna people to everyone. If you're someone new to Australia, or if you're a Kaurna person who hasn't got access to that information, how to get out there so everyone can appreciate the ingenuity and the amazing story of how we got to be where we are today based on all these older technologies. So everyone here at the at Hybrid World has seen all these new exciting technologies, and they are amazing. But these technologies don't tell the story. The technologies are just a means to an end. So we had to think of an information-first approach to getting the information out to everyone. I have a bunch of pictures here. I'm not going to completely stick to those. They're just going to show you my thought processes in getting some of the information out there. So we say when we come to an event, we honour the Kaurna people and we respect their connection spiritually to Australia. And the idea is, if we could only understand a tiny glimpse of that, it would bring us so much closer to understanding their history and their story. There is a huge collection, 30,000 items, and around the world there's a whole bunch of other items. And so the idea of making an experience that could be scaled, people could understand from all walks of life and all ages. And I think particularly the younger generation are engaging with things like augmented reality and virtual reality more. So I've made a gamified system where you actually make your way across Australia and you find different artifacts, which we will slowly be digitizing over the time of the app production. You make your own journey, and then you get to, at the end of that, you get a token that you can share, this Nina Mani token, which says welcome, and it also says, let's learn. The idea is that you become the teacher at that point, and then you get to show your family, loved ones, and friends the artifacts you've seen along the way, and then you get to share it with them. There's many different medias, as you can see back there, we could collect about a particular item. The ultimate being an augmented reality experience where we have a 3D scan of an item that you can actually put using an app onto an area in front of you and show a family member. And then also, if you don't have access to that same level of technology, then you can have just as meaningful an experience. And so there's many different ways to get information out as we broaden that into a SA museum experience and also broaden it to the rest of the world. So I made an experience that we could have you come into the museum with the information you've gathered on your app. You run it through a machine. I designed these interesting looking chairs because I just wanted to make the tangible experience that people could come in using the Gigabit Ethernet that we're going to have access to. We have a super augmented, interesting experience here that we can replicate to other big centers around the world. And particularly for people that are out there in remote locations, the experience is scalable down so they can actually have access to the same information from where they are. And so I call it perpetual personalized experience, that you get to be the owner of your experience, you get to find these artifacts and you get to share them with the people around you. We get to keep it within context. It's scalable over time, and I guess there's another aspect of this which is also the finances of how we're going to make sure this really big scalable project is going to be viable, is that will be a higher level experience that we could have possible, like servers in schools around Australia that could actually, if they don't have access to the Gigabit Ethernet that we're lucky enough to have here, they can still do an experience, and then it can help fund the future of this. I want everyone to have access to the actual free app, and it itself will bring content into the museum. You can see a video of just some other things because I've already made some apps and games for the Adelaide City Library and the actual museum. The technology doesn't drive this, is my most important point. You can make beautiful things, but at the end of the day, the information is what we want to get out there.
No, I believe we may be taking some questions from our judges today.
Sorry. I'm here.
If anybody's got a question they'd like to ask.
Hi, thank you for that. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what the actual travel experience is? I mean, you say you can create your personalised travel experiences. Just take us through that a little bit.
Using the traditional map of Australia, each node inside that would have, you'd be starting at a random point around Australia. You have access to all the touching environments around that, and each one will have an artifact. The point of the fact that we're going to have so many different artifacts is that we can start with a smaller round of artifacts and work our way up over time. You choose one of those, and then you make your way back, and you learn about that piece of artifact. When you get back here, you get this sharing token, this Nino Money token, and then using a QR code, you go to someone else and you convince them to get the app, which is an important aspect of this, and then you scan each other's code, and then you get to pass that artifact on to someone else, who then puts it in their collection, so when they come into the museum, they can actually scan that same code, which is built into the chair, which is a fairly economical technology to get that same amount of information off. We're just basically cataloging the items, and then you get to see the full augmented experience of that particular item and bring your family members and friends in and show off what you've done along your journey. And the idea is it's a personal journey that you're showing them the things that you loved and you thought were interesting along the way.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Daesh. Given that the South Australian Museum holds incredible materials, precious materials from all across the country, tell us a little bit how you'd imagine what you've pitched with regards to the Kaurna people, how you would apply that or scale that according to the wealth of stuff that is in the museum's collections. Obviously the museum sits on Kaurna country and there is a particular relationship with the Kaurna people, but the materials that are held in the museum's collections are from, I would venture, hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds of different language groups.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I hadn't actually really factored in translating this into different languages, which is an important point. Basically the database is where the storage of all these things will be, and then the idea it can come out into multiple different environments. It could be on a computer, it could be on the app. To get to different cultures, I'm not sure about language in that sense, but about the fact is we can actually have that information displayed in many different formats. So what we do is we need to get all this information into the database. So at that point, it is a scalable item that can be, depending on what technology is available in each area, they can actually have access to the important information.
Thanks, Dash. I think the most important thing with Australia in beyond tech and everything is engagement. You know, the worst thing that we can have in Australia is people not engaging. So I really commend you on sort of, you know, finding a gaming way in, finding a way to get young people thinking about engaging. But I guess there's another aspect to engagement that I want to ask you about, which is, does that idea of Ghana gifting, is that based on you having been able to have an engagement with Ghana people and find out if that's something that makes sense to local people here, or is that something that you're intending to do? Like, what's the cultural framework that you're exploring there?
Yeah, well, actually, when we went to the first original meeting, there's a lot of issues around bringing this information out there. I went to a company that specializes in actually bringing Aboriginal culture and then displaying it. It's not my speciality, so I had to go outside of my knowledge and then ask them what they do on a general basis. It's very complex, and I would really need the help of you guys, and just by speaking to them about all the different rules and regulations about what we want to do. There's no point making an app that offends people and also excludes people, and so we have to start with that first and then work it back to the technology. The technology is, like I said before, it's just a way to get there. I'm going to need a lot of guidance when it comes to that to do it properly.
Perfect. Do we have another question?
Thanks, Dace. Great presentation. I'm interested in how you think about the business model. So one of the challenges with these kind of projects is balancing community access and giving everyone access to these kinds of technologies versus making this potentially a revenue stream for the museum, which allows them to reinvest to create better experiences. And there's a trade-off between those two. I was wondering how you think about that.
Yeah. I don't think it's right to, because part of our community is Ghana people, and I don't think it's right to make them pay for an app to find out about their own culture. They are in the same situation as us, that it's actually impossible for them to get access to all 30,000 items, regardless of whether they have the rights to or not. And so I don't want to make an app that you could pay for, but at the same time, I understand that it has to be financially viable. So a school-based system where we could actually mimic this database server in areas where because we don't all have access to the awesome gigabit internet that we will have in the museum here. So we have to make a system where they can actually back it up, have a school-based system which would be like a pay-per-use system in different areas. I looked into the app, and you could have advertising for the museum, which is also the whole point of bringing people into the museum. We want to get people to take this experience, to want to be able to share it and take people through their journey when they come to the museum, but we also have to think about all the different other possibilities about how people will use it. Then it would be advertising for the museum that would be built into the app, because we already know that they're interested in history and what's happening on that particular app. Instead of making it random advertising, it would just be value-adding to the museum experience.
Fantastic. Let's everyone thank Dash for his presentation. It's a pretty nerve-wracking thing to get up here and present your ideas to a room full of brilliant people such as yourselves, so I appreciate your generosity. Now, could I please call to the stage Toby Kelty?
Hi everybody, how's it going? Probably a rhetorical question considering how many of you there are. Our judges, you're looking very radiant today. Lovely. Brilliant. So there's two major fears that people have: public speaking and death. The way my heart's going, I can be afraid of both. Brilliant. All right, stand-ups out of the way. Some of the shakes have mostly gone, so I'll start actually talking about the subject. So I'm Toby Kelty. I run an AR software development company, Augmented Reality. And what I'd like to do with this kind of thing is create an application which is accessible worldwide and allows people to experience Aboriginal culture, Aboriginal Australian culture. And the way that I'd like to do that is create an AR app through the phone. So you're looking at the ground, you're sitting around a campfire, opposite an Aboriginal elder with artifacts around the fire. Now, the reason why I went for this kind of presentation is because historically humanity's always learned around the campfire. They've learned about their history, their past, and things like that. Some of my fondest memories as a kid have been either sitting around a campfire or the house fire, listening to stories from my family. So that's kind of what I'd like to capture because, I mean, that's how the culture's been passed down. I imagine it's probably mostly still how the culture's passed down, to be honest, especially amongst families. So what I'd like to do is digitise as much of the collection as we can. There's 30,000 artefacts. Let's say we pick the top 10%, that's 3,000 artefacts. That's quite a big task. That's going to take a long time. So I'm trying to build an application that will scale, is modular, and we can continue working on as it grows. The idea would be to pick Aboriginal communities, probably from the Tinsdale map, along the lines of the Tinsdale map. And you'll be able to visit those communities, see artefacts from those communities, and then hear stories about those artefacts. For example, how they were made, why they were used in certain ways. For instance, all the varieties of boomerangs and all the different ways you can use them. Because there is a lot of depth that's worth going into in this kind of thing. Other examples would be, for instance, taking them through a longer form story where you have several different artefacts, all in augmented reality, so you can interact with them perfectly, you can rotate them around and actually, you know, you can do a stupid photo where you're standing next to a spear as a little kid, which I would absolutely love. You can send your friends, you know, usual stuff like that. But you could go into deeper stories like the Seven Sisters stories through the tale of multiple different objects. The idea would be you do 4 to 8 objects for each different community, and then you roll on to the next community as you get more funding. As for the funding itself, what I'd be looking to do would be to create a contribution system where users are able to give money to the app. They're able to divide the money either between a charity of their choice and the development. Sorry, not a charity of their choice, a charity that will work out. I've done a little bit of research myself, but I can't really tell the brilliant ones from the not brilliant, but we can talk about that. The idea being that I would feel absolutely terrible sticking ads in this kind of application. I don't particularly want to sell it because I want to make it as accessible as possible. And I think people will actually contribute. They'll actually, 99 people will contribute nothing, the 100th might contribute $2, which is all you need when you're doing phone-based apps, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, and that would, I believe, solve the problem. And sorry, I should actually say, the stories themselves, we will actually be going to the community to talk to people. We'll be getting voice actors and things like that in to actually give them the richness and the depth that they can come through with. We'll probably need to, again, go through you guys for contacts, just because it's difficult to find different people. I might just open that up to questions, if you don't mind, just so you guys can actually...
Thank you very much. No, keep that one. Thank you for your presentation. Now, judges, any questions?
I've forgotten something. Please tell me what it was.
Great job. Thanks, Toby. I'm interested in your experience in delivering this kind of storytelling through a phone.
Through a phone, yeah, I know that's an interesting challenge. So what you probably want to do is headphones hooked into, the phone jack. I was thinking actually the experience we created around like a living room experience. So you're sitting on your couch at home, you place it down in the middle of the world, and then we can do things where it darkens the screens and things. I would absolutely love it if we stick a skybox up the front that looks like the Southern Hemisphere's stars, which would be gorgeous. But the idea is that then it's a living room experience that's seen through the phone. You're right, there are some issues along the lines of properly getting people engaged, because looking through a phone, you're only seeing a little sliver. Tablets, better, not the best. The kind of technology that I intend to use to build this application will allow for very easy porting to things like VR, which can create a much, much fuller experience. I've also got experience working with things like the HoloLens, but not many people have a HoloLens lying around, unfortunately, so we can't really utilize that for... Basically, the reason I'm going for phones and tablets is to get as many people as possible as engaged as possible. So I think, the people you really want are going to be people that are, the kids of parents who have nice phones and want them to be quiet for an hour. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the judges?
Yeah, it was a great presentation, thanks. I was just thinking out loud here, and phones tend to be kind of lean in, lean forward experiences, and given that you're trying to create this shared experience around a campfire, and I like that concept a lot, by the way, I'm just thinking if it almost, again, thinking out loud, if you could actually do this on a bigger screen, obviously AR would be, the holy grail here, but I'm just thinking, even on a TV that people could, gather around,
Again, it would be quite easy to port the kind of things I'm thinking about. Another thing we could do with the phone, which I've researched, is similar to Google Cardboard, basically just where you're sticking the visor over your headset and then you have a full immersive experience. But I wanted to pitch the basic premise as I decided that it was better to get broader reach by going for the most wide target rather than focusing, because I kind of want to get this as far out as possible. All this stuff could definitely be honed, you're right. We could target different platforms, different things.
And just one other question, I guess, about content creation. So the artifacts will come with some data or metadata describing what they are, and that's a starting point, obviously, but you also talked about creating stories to kind of tie those artifacts together. So how do you envision going about creating those stories and getting that content?
I was looking at voice acting, actually. So the text-based stuff I don't think is engaging enough. We could certainly have, pop-outs that come. So the artifacts here, you have a nice little pop-up that's got, this was found here, it does this, that. The stories are where it'll be really good. So for instance, I've sent an email out into the wild to Chasm, who does Centre for Aboriginal Sound and Music, I believe. I figure there would probably be some guys and girls with lovely voices there that we could use as voice actors for it to create some really engaging stories. And one of the things which we've been umming and ahhing about with this is because I know that each story is part of its community, but the voice actors would probably have to come from general areas just to keep it consistent so people can actually get engaged with that individual voice actor, and you can have a personality like that welcomes you back, that acts like a bit of an uncle or acts like a grumpy old lovely person. You can really get it a bit, have some personality in there.
I'll segue in on the grumpy kind of guy there. Toby, so I work at the museum. I'm really interested in how audiences interact with collections, how objects and collections make people feel and make them reflect on our history. And your applications it's based in the sense, I guess, of being away from the museum and being able to integrate a sense of the collections from other sites. Do you see ways in which it could also have a life within the museum?
Yeah, so the majority of the work that's going into this, like the application, the idea is with the money we'll build the base application, some content, push it out. The majority of the work and the cost will actually be in getting accurate 3D representations of the artifacts and the voices and the stories around them. Once that was done, basically you could build a sister app without too much additional funds, which would be for the museum or something like that. You stick a QR code next to the little thing that shows all the information, you scan it, your mate's standing there, you tell you a story about, what's important about these things, what's interesting. Once all that audio data is gathered and collated, it can be used for many, many other things. That's what I was hoping it would go for in that direction.
Do we have any further questions from the judges? No? All good? Thank you very much, Toby. Really appreciate it. And next up we have Sam Heroin. Please welcome to the stage.
Hello everyone, my name's Sam Haran. I'm a creative director at Sandpit, and we're a digital agency based here in Adelaide and in Melbourne. And we focus on making immersive experiences that combine digital technology in the real world. And last year we began an extended research project that was looking at visitor technologies in museums and galleries in Australia and the US. And we got to visit SF MoMA, Cooper Hewitt, and the Smithsonian Museum for the Native American, amongst others. And we came away with a key insight, which is that most museums have vastly larger collections than their physical spaces can exhibit, just as the SA Museum does. And that they're all looking for new ways that they can digitize these content items and share them in new ways. And alongside this, they're also wanting to better understand what do visitors actually do once they're in their building, and how can they better understand what they're doing before and after the experience of visiting. So Sandpit has been working on a visitor experience platform which meets all of these needs, and it's called Cypher, and we think it is pretty cool. Cypher stores digital collections and renders them in new ways to visitors. It can also seamlessly attach to existing systems to track deep visitor engagement before, during, and after their visit. Cypher becomes the key to delivering personalised content to the visitor. This can be done through their smartphone. It can be done through an NFC chip and an object that works a little bit like PayWave. It can be used through technology like facial recognition. All of these things allow Cypher to become the kind of key for the visitor to unlock an exhibition. When they're in the museum, they're able to trigger audio or video and make other selections like language. And post-experience, once leaving, they can take a digital version of the museum away with them that they can explore more deeply. So for Ignite, we want to propose a unique visitor experience which combines the power of Cypher with a technology called X-Wi-Fi, and it's an interactive technology that we've prototyped with Google's Creative Lab in Sydney. And X-Wi-Fi connects the visitor's phone to a large video screen, and it allows them to interact with digital objects and access rich interpretive information. So we're imagining it could work like this, that in the museum is a large projected image that brings together multiple objects constructed of smaller images. For example, there could be hundreds of boomerangs that are all assembled into a montage. And these objects groupings could change at regular intervals to show different aspects of the collection. Now, the way that X-Wi-Fi works is it uses a local Wi-Fi network, there's no app to download, and it allows multiple users to join at once and be able to turn their smartphone into a cursor, which means that they can select a different image and then from an image explore an object. At the point they select that object, they end up with the object in the palm of their hand on the screen of their phone, and it comes to life and they're able to explore it in various ways. They might see a short video, a gallery of images, or hear a voiceover narration about the objects. And all of this can be derived from the vast collection that SA Museum has in its Indigenous collection. And in addition to this being in the SA Museum itself, this technology is actually very portable, so it could easily go into regional or remote areas. So it could be set up in a hall or a school or an outdoor space. Sandpit is spinning Cypher off into a scalable digital product business. And we've got an established client base in the museum space. Here are some of them that we're working with at the moment. We have piloted Cypher in ACME in Melbourne in their Wonderland exhibition, and we've had over 100,000 visitors interact in the past 4 months, so that's been really exciting. The Cypher team is nimble and lightweight, and we're ready to move into these markets. We're also working with senior Ghana custodian Carl Telfer to guide the creative and cultural principles that should govern the experience. Medium to large institutions are spending anywhere between $20 and $200 million within their operating budgets in a year, and we've found that they spend about 2% of those budgets in trying to understand their audiences. And so we think that Cypher can provide a much more powerful way that they could start to get insights into those audiences. At the moment, we're imagining a basic package of Cypher starting at $38,000, and we can see that if we get 26 customers, we can start breaking a $1 million revenue point, which we think would be very exciting. I think I'm out of time, so thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sam. Do we have any questions from the judges?
Yes. Sorry, that sounded more ominous than it needed to.
Yes, I do.
I'm scared now.
Look, it's a really exciting proposition. I guess, again, being with the museum guy hat on and thinking about the people who walk around in that space every day, one of my concerns would be that you're putting people into a museum, which is sort of the last place on earth where you can look at stuff, and you're asking people to look at a screen and point at a screen with their phones. So I guess what I'm really interested in is do you see ways, and have you got experience in some of your other projects, where you see people and this technology drawing people into engagement with objects and with collections rather than mediated by all the screens.
Absolutely, and I mean, one of the reasons we've been using, say, NSC technology in the Acme Wonderland experience is exactly for that reason, that sometimes a screen is not always the best way to help the visitor engage with the location they're in. But I think central to this idea is that there's this collection that can't physically be there. 95% of those objects can't be in the space. So for us, we kind of go, if there can be a really kind of simple and easy way that lots of users can kind of have an access to a digital layer within the museum, that can be exciting. But we really do value the kind of the tactile nature of what it means to go to a museum. And I think we would view the Cypher has a kind of dexterity. This is kind of one application, but in the future, if the museum wanted to have, like, a tactile little physical object that you can carry through the space that is less about engaging with the screen, that's possible too.
Robin, thank you very much for your presentation. You just referred to objects that might not physically be able to be there in the museum. I'm thinking about people that might physically not be able to attend the museum or be in any of the locations where this might be. So what sort of applicability, I guess, could there be through Cypher with what is a massive worldwide fascination with Aboriginal cultures, millions in fact, who will never perhaps set foot in the door of the museum?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the underlying technology of what we're proposing here is actually is fairly straightforward. It needs a screen, it needs like a wireless router, it doesn't need an internet connection. So it is possible for this kind of experience to be set up in many, many different locations. It's also very possible to take the kind of rendering of what we are doing and, say, place it into like a web front end. If we kind of went, there wanted to be an experience which was completely untethered from a physical space, but I think we thought it was really exciting about going, how can we bring something to communities, whether it's within the museum or going into communities, and that's kind of driven our thinking. But it does have that flexibility to translate into something that could be more web-based or set up in another place, another museum in the world.
One last question, hopefully. I'm particularly interested in the storytelling aspect, and could you perhaps describe a little bit more about the potential to connect people and to share stories with Cypher?
Absolutely, and I think our interest in working with Carl was definitely to go, how can we find ways to access the stories behind objects, which are so incredibly fascinating and important and meaningful. And it's very, very easy to go into any kind of museum or gallery and see an object and not fully understand what its sort of narrative is. So I think what we're interested in doing is going, how can we find a way to frame a story around an object and kind of go out to the scale of the collection to feel that what we can do is create a field of these objects and allow a way that people can dive into it in various ways. So we imagine there's many forms that can be kind of oral and visual that can mean the story can sit around those objects.
We have a final question.
Thanks, Sam. Great presentation. I'm interested, considering you've got experience in doing this before, that it's one thing to create an experience, it's another thing to create a great experience.
Yep.
You must have some data about your ability to re-engage people or the amount of time that people are engaged with these kind of experiences. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the really powerful things that Cypher's doing is creating that visibility of how people move and interact in a space, and that we're able to understand the movements of individuals in a space and also understand the volume of engagement. So I think there's really valuable insights that the museum could learn about in terms of understanding the kinds of engagements, how many users a day, how are they delving into the content, what things have been accessed more than others. If Cypher is sort of working across the museum, you can have a sense of how are people travelling in that space, what other things are they engaging in. So I think that there are powerful insights that Cypher can offer that are very, very difficult to really understand once someone walks through the door of a building.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you. Now that is all of our pitches for the SA Ignite competition here at the moment. Thank you all for your hard work and innovative ideas. It's fascinating to see. We also just want to quickly thank the sponsors of this challenge: US Ignite, the University of South Australia, the South Australian Museum, Sabernet, Optus and Cisco. Now the judges are going to deliberate and the winner will be announced following our HWA, our Hybrid World Adelaide lab pitches, which is about to begin, funnily enough. So now we are going to have more pitching from the Hybrid World Adelaide Development Lab. Now, as you know, Hybrid World Adelaide is made up of 3 parts. We've got this tech conference, 2 days of fantastic interactive events that were on yesterday and Saturday, and the Startup Development Lab. Now, I think one of my favourite things about Hybrid World is seeing how those 3 things come together and work together, and seeing, you know, the general audience kind of fascinated and intrigued and getting hands-on with these technologies that they see over the weekend, and then everyone comes in this room and talks about how it actually happens, and then that can spark ideas for anyone to become involved, really, and I think this really exemplifies that. So the Hybrid World Lab was developed in partnership with Tech in SA, who will administer the development grants, and the University of South Australia's Innovation and Collaboration Centre, who hosted the lab in their new space. Now, over 2 days, Friday and Saturday last week, 13 Australian startups worked with local and international mentors to refine their ideas and plans, develop their pitches, and work to make their ideas and their vision a reality. Now, after a round of preliminary pitches, we have 6 finalists who will be pitching for a share of $85,000 in state government development grants. So I do want to quickly now just thank our judges. We've got Amanda Duthie, who is the CEO of Hybrid World Adelaide. Thank you. We've also got Robert Tursek, the Creative Director of Hybrid World Adelaide Lab and this conference. We've got Joe Thorpe, the CEO of Tech in SA. There's Tim Duggan, the publisher and co-founder of Junkie Media. And Terry Whiting from Giant for Solutions to Business. Now, the running order for the pitches this afternoon was actually selected at random, which I find incredibly exciting. And first up, do you want to know the whole order now? You should know the whole order now. So first up, we will have Athletes AI, and then Play T, Pimp My Pad, I'm excited about that one, Kelpie, Taito, and Verbalize Science. So first up, would you please welcome to the stage Athletes AI.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, judges. My name's David Toe, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Athletes AI. I love tennis. I've been playing tennis for the last 30 years, and I got to a world ranking of 512 in the world. One of the things that got me to that level was video analytics. Seeing myself on camera, seeing my strengths, my weaknesses, my tactics, statistics, that gave me a step change improvement in my game. Now, I was introduced to it quite late in my career, and I thought to myself, what if I was introduced and had access to this earlier? How much better could I have become? What if everyone has access to video analytics at all levels? So that was the inspiration behind Athletes AI. We're looking to put video analytics in the hands of all athletes. The problem with existing solutions are threefold. Firstly, it's inaccessible because it requires multiple cameras put around a stadium. Secondly, it's slow because it requires someone actually sitting there and manually labeling the footage. And finally, it's limited. It only provides analytics in hindsight, in the past. Our solution overcomes all these three problems. We're making it more accessible. All you need is your smartphone. In real time, analytics are faster, and also it can provide analytics not just in the past, but also predictions and recommendations on how to improve your game. We have 4 people on our team and 4 PhDs as well. I have myself as the domain knowledge, Mark McDonnell, who will be developing, or is developing, the back end. He's an internationally renowned expert in computer science. And then we've got Guy Galash developing the front end, who's got years of experience in computer programming. And then we've got Patrina Coventry, who's a global advisor to startups. With my background in tennis and my networks, we're looking at the Australian and the US tennis market first. We're targeting 3,000 coaches to be using our platform by the end of 2019. With a yearly subscription rate of $1,000, this will give us a yearly revenue of $3 million. Just to put it in perspective of our manual labeling competitors, there's 2 manual labeling companies out there right now, Huddle and Dartfish. They have over 100,000 customers each, and depending on the retention rate of their customers, they're potentially generating up to 100 million in yearly revenue. This is the market we're trying to capture, at least because our product will be superior to theirs, so we'll aim to capture this market and more. The way it works is really quite simple. All you need to do is capture the video on your smartphone, and then the analytics is there right away for you to review. All the smarts, the secret sauce, the magic behind it is done automatically in real time using machine learning algorithms. What you can use the analytics for is pre-game, mid-game, and post-game. So pre-game, how do I play against a certain opponent? What's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? Mid-game, how do I modify my tactics to based on the previous results so far? And post-game, show me all of my backhands on breakpoints. What were my strengths? What could I have done better? We've already developed significant IP. We can do the ball and play tracking. We can tag key events. We can identify forehands, backhands, down the line, cross-court, ball direction, and also biomechanical analysis to improve your technique. We've got initial revenue coming in from Tennis Australia, and we've got multiple clubs and schools signed up for tennis. And to demonstrate our market potential for team sports, we've also got Cricket Australia signed up, and we're developing a similar product for them as well. Our strategy for each sport is the same. We're looking for partnering with a big organisation so we can leverage off the brand equity, penetrate the market quicker, and also ensure we have product market fit. We then put a team together to develop an MVP, capture our first customer, and then expand from there on. So we've progressed that far in tennis. We've just kicked off Cricket Australia, and if we're successful with this Hybrid World grant, we will be put that towards developing the final features of the tennis product. I'd like to leave you with our vision, which is to become the global leader in video analytics across all sports using AI. I'm passionate about tennis, I'm passionate about sports, and I want to put video analytics in the hands of all athletes. Thank you.
Questions. Thank you so much. I do love the confidence in including the pitch grant money here in your timeline. Do we have any questions from the judges?
Yeah, I might kick off. David, well done. Very professional pitch. Thank you. So you mentioned that you've got some competitors. It wasn't clear to me from your presentation what the differentiation is to those established players.
So the competitors that I mentioned up there were the manual labeling ones. So those ones are where coaches actually manually have to watch the video and tag manually. So we're doing that all automatically, and it's done in real time. So normally those competitors actually have a delay in the processed footage. It takes 2 days for them to come back with the processed footage.
Great pitch, David. My first question is the roadmap that you had up there. It said June, so last month was the first customer, which I think you said was Cricket Australia. How has that gone? What's been the feedback from them?
With Cricket Australia, we're only just commencing our journey with them. So our main product so far is focused on the tennis market. So we've got our first customer for tennis, and we're just finalising the product for tennis. But cricket, right now, the reason for the partnership is so that we're making sure we develop a product that they need, so that we're not actually working on in silo.
David, thank you very much. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I was interested in the fact you talked about putting in the hands of all athletes. Reality for the area you're involved with tennis, is that most tennis people working through it can hardly scrape enough money to get a meal when they're on tour. So I'm interested that you really are only looking in reality at the large corporations, because the $1,000 a year wouldn't be possible for them to come through. Can you just talk about how you see that next step in terms of using the tennis?
Sure. So rather than having players as the initial kind of market, we're actually going for the coaches. So we're looking at a revenue share with the coaches. So right now, coaches charge $80 an hour. We're looking at, if they use our product, they'll charge $90 an hour for the student. $5 goes to us and $5 goes to the player. $5 goes to the coaches. So that gives the coaches an incentive to use our product, and also is a channel for us to access the players.
With all of the talk today about machine learning and artificial intelligence, tell us if you have any aspects in your system that learn.
Yeah, so the more data we feed into our product, the better it gets. Our accuracy with identifying all the forehands, the backhands, the downlines, cross courts currently is around about 90%, which is what Tennis Australia have said is equal to human labelling. But with more footage, it gets better than that. So it's, the more video that we have using our footage will improve that accuracy.
Do we have any final questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up to pitch on the stage is Play T.
Afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming along. My name is Jason Neve, and I'm one of the co-founders of Plate. Plate is a food tech startup. Did I say that? Probably. Plate's a food tech startup, and our mission is to make every recipe in the world, no matter in what format it's in, instantly shoppable so that the ingredients can be delivered to your home. I've heard a bit of late people talking about that in startup land, one of the most important things, aside from team and product and all those sorts of things, is timing. And I just want to quickly describe what I think are some of the three sort of macro trends that are happening right now. Do we even end up with a clicker up here somewhere? Is that it? Oh, sweet. Sorry. So three macro trends that I think are happening right now that is going to keep our product at the top of the food chain for some years to come. The first is our lastminute.com society. 70% of people have no idea what they're going to have for dinner at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. People leave it to the last minute. They start to dread the 90-minute dash to the supermarket and the smash-up derby in the car park, and they end up ordering takeaway or Uber Eats or something at home, which is invariably more expensive and less healthy for them. Second major trend, and if you haven't seen that book or that website, I highly encourage it. It's very amusing. Second major trend is that we are recognising finally the value of our time. So the 5 million shoppers that there are in Australia, or grocery shoppers thereabouts, spend on average 90 minutes a week shopping for the food they cook for their family at home. You extrapolate that out, and that's 45,000 person years lost every year from going to the supermarket, battling the crowds, and buying your food. The third trend is probably more colloquially known as food porn. People post whatever they're going to eat, they click on whatever they're going to eat, and apart from probably kittens, food would be the most popular posted category on social media. We eat with our eyes, and it's not surprising. I don't know anyone here who would think that they get hungry looking at a piece of glad-wrapped raw chicken breast, but show me a Kung Pao chicken or a fajita, and that's a different story. We eat with our eyes, and we get incentivised and, I suppose, hungry just by looking at beautiful food. So imagine if, wherever you get your inspiration, whether you're looking at a cookbook, your nan's favourite recipe book, whether you're looking at a website or your socials, and this amazing food keeps popping up. Imagine if you could click a button and in seconds have that food on the way to your home. As we take advantage of the shortening delivery windows for that last mile delivery, that's becoming more and more possible, and we've built that technology here in Adelaide with an Adelaide team right now. And we've just got back from a around the world trip where we've presented it with loads of interest to some of the largest grocery companies in the world. So the way it works, if it's going to work, was that the automatic play video? Yeah, so the way it works, it's pretty simple. You find any recipe, whether it's on a website, whether it's on our website, whether it's in a cookbook, you tag it, and the whole process takes a matter of seconds to send the content. We read the content of the page, we semantically interpret the language, we have a natural language engine that translates it, sends it off to Woolworths in Australia for us right now, and returns a shopping list in seconds. You can, if you like, as we saw in that recipe, add wine, we can recommend wine, and the food is on its way to your home. The market is huge, 48 billion just a couple of years ago, increasing to 150 billion according to Kantar Research. By 2025, it's the fastest sector of the grocery economy and fastest growing sector, and will anticipatedly take up 20% of the total grocery market by that time. Our model is pretty simple. We earn money every time somebody signs up with our platform and every time they order a basket. We can charge consumers a fee. We're not doing that yet. Our brands will pay for virtual shelf space. They'll have their brand prioritised as a sponsored search result above an alternate brand of olive oil, for example. And our product is inherently scalable. We are just a customer acquisition and conversion and experience engine. We have no inventory of our own. We have no warehousing or property, and we have no trucks that deliver the goods. All of that takes place with our grocery partners. So, is that the end? Solid team. I'm being cut off. And we need some help. Anyone in the room that thinks they can give us a hand, that would be great. If I'm successful today, we would put that money directly towards hiring another developer and accelerating our international expansion. Thank you.
Let's go there for some questions. Plate. It's so obvious now. Do we have any questions? Platey. Do we have any questions?
I have a question for Platey. No, for Plate.
It's Plate.
Plate. Thank you for that, Jason. The space that you want to enter is very competitive, and you've got some really well-funded people all around periphery doing different parts of that job. So from the Woolworths online ordering through to meal delivery services through to food delivery. One, how much money do you think you're actually going to need to get this to market? And two, what's to stop competition from coming in and doing something similar to this that are already well funded?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we expect competition to arrive at some point. I mean, if there was no competition, there wouldn't be a market, I don't think. Most of the existing competitors in this space use hard-coded SKUs behind recipes that are published online so that they can be made shoppable, but it's not semantic. So you can't automatically apply, like we do, a button to a third-party publisher website who might just be looking after a gluten-free or lactose-intolerant meal plan and deliver this stuff. So we expect them to come, but right now, and based on the feedback we've had from Woolworths and a couple of the international grocery chains, they said it's super interesting tech and they haven't seen anything like it.
Sorry, the other part of the question was just how much money you think you need?
Sure. Right now, Woolworths has volunteered to help market it for us. We will use that, as I just mentioned, like a little JavaScript button to help other publishers monetize the recipe content. So we will acquire customers in that fashion, that we'll share some of the revenue we get from our grocery partners with a publisher. So if you've got a publisher, if you've got another website with a couple 100,000 visitors or uniques and you publish recipe content, we can help you monetize that content, which right now is just there, not doing anything.
Can I pick up on that question? I think they'll come into the market faster than you probably anticipate. What are you thinking about to manage that movement? I mean, the market moves very quickly now. Your competitors. You'll have new competitors in the market very, very fast.
Yeah, I would anticipate that as well. So right now we've got exclusivity as a two-way thing with our partner here in Australia. We'll try and negotiate similar terms in the other markets we go into, and we're building for those markets right now. We already did our first prototype integration with Tesco before doing Woolworths, but Woolworths was a logical choice to start with at home.
Interesting.
Jason, you describe your company as a customer acquisition vehicle for other retailers. With 2.8 million apps in the Google Play Store, how do you plan to cut through the noise and to help people discover your app?
Yeah, just much the same way as we talk about the access to other eyeballs without having to pay for them by sharing our revenue. So we've already got existing conversations underway with a number of high volume publishers, whether bloggers and things like that. We would also co-partner with our grocery partners who want to push this and make it or show their customers that there's a better way to do it. And we may even look at allowing our tech to be integrated with some of the Woolworths or international grocery apps as well.
How will you get to know me as a customer, and are you going to surprise me, or are you just going to wait for me to come to you?
Well, both, hopefully. So over time, if you find us through whatever discovery means you do, whether it's from friends and word of mouth or our PR or our marketing, once you use us, rather than just passing stuff blindly through to Woolworths, we retain every part of your behaviour, both in terms of how you interact with our site, but also the food you order and like. And so at that 3 p.m. in the afternoon inspiration window where people are still wondering, WTF am I having for dinner, we should be able to hit you with the stuff we know you like. We should be able to recommend wine that's going to go with that meal, and you can have that arrive at your house 2 hours later if you wish.
And what if I only want to buy local?
I'm sorry?
What if I only want to buy local?
That becomes harder with our existing model if we're only partnering with Woolworths, and there's nothing to stop us partnering with Adelaide Central Markets API if they have one. It becomes a technology question and return on effort over time. So to try and get to mass market as quickly as we can, we'll probably have to stick with a provider in each given market as a first port of call, and then diffuse down from there, I suppose.
Do we have any final questions? No, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kate.
Next up, we have Pimp My Pad.
Hey everyone, Robert Sparkles in the logo, just for you. My name is Shane Ahern, and this is Pimp My Pad, Augmented Realty. It was actually called Model Farm a few days ago, but everyone thought it was a farmer. No one asked if I was a model, so I don't know. We're talking about augmented reality. Augmented reality in the retail market by 2023 is going to be worth $8 billion. And right now, if you look at the stats, 40% of people will actually pay more for a product if it's available in AR. And they're 71% more likely to go to a store if they offer an augmented reality experience. And the big boys know this. IKEA already have their augmented reality app, House, the interior design app and website. Once they implemented augmented reality into their app in October, the likelihood of anyone actually purchasing in the app went up 11 times, and people spent 3 times longer in the app. This is brilliant. This is really good for retail stores. Except it's not at all accessible to retail stores, not the small to medium-sized ones. Because the main problem is digitizing assets, converting your chair that you have on your shop floor to a digital asset that works in augmented reality is a really costly exercise. It's expensive, time-consuming. There's a lot of expertise required, specialist equipment, there's a heavy technical pipeline, there's a massive barrier to entry. So why do I think I'm the one that can solve this problem? Well, first of all, I'm the founder and director of Model Farm. So Model Farm is a high-end visualization and augmented reality studio here in Adelaide, focusing on the property market. So our customers are already a lot of those retailers and property developers. We have programmers, we have app developers, we have artists, and we have a pipeline. And before this, for 14 years, I was a visual effects artist and headed up big teams, 20 to 30 strong, on some of these major titles. So I understand urgency, I understand high-pressure projects, I understand hitting a quality and a deadline, and what that takes between the technical, sort of people that you manage and the artistic and creative side as well, and driving a result. So here's a quick sort of mock-up of what an augmented reality experience for furniture and decor purchasing looks like. I mean, we've actually developed apps far superior to this, where we can change the floor, where we can change the walls. Unfortunately, I can't show them to you right now because these are apps for real customers that haven't been released yet. But you can see the impact, the power. Like, when you can see exactly what furniture looks like, then you're happy to commit to a purchase and sale, and we offer easy purchase and sales channels to that as well. So here's the business model. Think of us as the eBay or the Etsy for augmented reality. This is a massive market. The home decor market by 2022 will be worth $855 billion. So here we go. We will scan your entire catalog for free, eliminating all the risk. We're going to get rid of that barrier to entry for anyone. We will then add to and sell that from our own platform. We will become the marketplace. The profits will come from a standard retail markup or an affiliate arrangement, and then companies take care of their own fulfillment, their own storage, and hopefully keeping up with the demand of being exposed to a completely new market. So today, we have a fund request, bold as it is, please give us this much money. We need to get that machine there. It's called Artec Eva. That is the best 3D scanner on the market that you can get for under $50,000. It gives us the precision, the quality, and the speed that are essential for this to be a success. Thank you very much for your time. If anyone is genuinely interested, I've set up a website. And come to it and register your interest. We'd love to know if you're keen to opt in. And I'm looking forward to the questions from the panel.
Just a suggestion. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping in there, Ray.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Table Tinder. Sorry. Yeah, I know. No, I know. Okay. So you need to buy the camera with a 25K, and then just take us to the next step. What are you going to do with that?
Sure. Well, actually, the camera will be 23. And then there's a margin there for basically I need studio light setting and a small bit of hardware. But I've also buffered in a few $100s there for a bit of a marketing drive. I mean, this is such a new concept, and I'd like to really start off by focusing this in Adelaide and bring in some early opt-in retailers. For them, it's hopefully risk-free. We're creating assets for them, and if they want to license this, and if they want to take those assets and use it on a platform, Facebook this week announced that they're introducing augmented reality into their newsfeed, we're happy to license those assets back to them. So basically, we just wanted a few $100s to drive some marketing through. And then from there on, it's scaling. And, think about how like Uber Eats has disrupted that industry. We'd like to train people up in using the equipment. And as technology advances, the equipment won't be as expensive. It could be done from, an iPad Pro. So then it's having people in mobile sessions and just basically getting every single retailer in Australia starting off on this app, and then, I know, global domination, that'd be good, yeah. Sorry.
So have you been in talks with Gigabit to license the name?
No, but the domain name was available, so first come, right? Finders keepers.
While we're talking about the name, I think the name is very memorable. A comment, though, is that it might have restrictions in making you seem more premium or getting people spending too much on furniture. It might appeal to a certain type of market. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, the name is, it's a bit eye-grabbing. I didn't come up with it. Josh, who's in the room here, is one of our great mentors over the weekend, came up with it off the bat, and it grabbed people's attention. You know, if we want to be more professional in the market or seem more professional or expose ourselves to a bigger like age group or anything like that, then, but what we wanted to do was actually, with this small bit of the extra budget, was split test several names. Run the same advertising on Google and then see which drove the most interest.
Sounds fantastic. Great little presentation.
Thank you.
What I'm interested in is if you're starting in Adelaide and you're starting to build it, most retailers want a competitive edge. So they're likely in one area, say furniture, they're likely to say to you, unless we can have this solely in this space for X period or whatever, we don't want to buy in. And that, I mean, that's the competitive reality of retail. Have you thought about the implications of that in a small town like Adelaide?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we deal with some national retailers that are Adelaide-based here as well. The problem is, fine, they can go and be competitive solely. They can't afford to get in there. We're doing this for free. We're taking that on. We're developing an absolute pipeline. And if you're not in, if you're not playing the game, you're not going to win. We are going to give that competitive edge to every other retailer who opts in and wants to deal with us. You know, as I said, we're eliminating that risk. So it's effectively, you know, for someone not to get in this market, they'll have to take on a huge personal debt to try and compete.
Yeah, thanks. I guess that was my question. What is your kind of globally defensible market position? If what it takes is a $23,000 scanner and the interface that you've developed, why can't someone copy that and copy it quickly in other markets?
They can. It's hard, and initially when you start this off, it's quite expensive. We have to develop a process, a pipeline. It's not quick to get into. Eventually, technology will be at a stage in a few years where literally you can do this from an iPad. The idea is to get in there. We're the absolute first to offer this as a totally free access. Shopify, for example, who have just announced that they are going to enter this sort of AR space. Their solution to this is just to pair retailers up with 3D modeling studios, and they're offsetting the cost to the actual client. So no one's come up with a solution. We're being bold. We're taking on that initial hit. It's through opportunities like this that we can afford to actually do that. I mean, if no one here buys into it, it would be really, really hard for me to sort of enter this market, or for anyone to enter this market. That's why it's so essential that we have this initial boost, initial thrust that you can give us.
Do we have any further questions from the judges? No? Thank you very much. Pimp my ride.
Thank you very much.
Pimp my ride. Pimp my pad. Next, could you please welcome to the stage Kelpie?
Hi, my name's Tim Klepto, and I'd like to introduce you to Kelpie, the digital working dog. So agriculture is an important part of Australia's culture and our economy. It employs 300,000 people directly and another 1.6 million in related industries and services. At the moment, the value of the industry, of the sector, is around $75 billion, but by 2030, that's expected to grow to $100 billion. And that's driving a lot of ag tech to come onto the market because farmers need to meet the efficiencies that are required to fuel that growth. And if we do adopt all that technology that's available, we could add quite easily $20 billion of value in an instant. However, this leads us to what the problem is. And the problem is, quite simply, adoption. That technology out there isn't being adopted. And there's a number of key reasons for that. The first is that there are considerably low levels of digital literacies within our farming communities. It's not that they're scared of the technology, it's just that they've never really worked with it. They're industrialised, but not necessarily digitised. And the systems that farmers have to use are much more complicated than you or I in our consumer kind of level have to deal with. So they're hard to use, they take a lot of time and effort to learn. The second problem is that there's no end-to-end solutions. What's available today is often quite fragmented. It does little bits of all the tasks that are required by a farmer to actually bring things to market, but it doesn't do them all. Each of these products is siloed, it's got its own data, it's got its own interface, its own way of working, and quite often it requires its own app. So if you look at what's out there, it's quite daunting if you don't have the skill set and then this is what's coming at you. So we figured that farmers need some help. They need to turn to someone that they can trust and something that they know how to work with. And we figured the working dog was it. So that's why we came up with Kelpie. So what exactly does Kelpie do? So we'd call Kelpie a digital farm aggregation platform. So if you think about Alexa or Google Home, where you can connect a whole range of digital services into one single, easy-to-use interface, we're doing that, but for farmers. Farmers can use our mobile app to access all of those services. They only need to learn one way to work, and then they can get access to all that information. Kelpie does the hard work of aggregating the industry knowledge, the farm data, the business data, the sensors that are going on and telling them what's going on the farm. And we can provide them with notifications of all those kind of bits and pieces that are happening. But the beauty of Kelpie is that we don't just provide them a way to access information, we provide a way for them to action that. And this is really where the benefit for the farmer really comes, is that they can start to connect all these separate little bits of technology. We can bridge between them. So rather than just getting a notification that the moisture probe in the paddock is saying the ground is dry, that then they can then, within a click, turn on the irrigation system. We think that having this unified interface is a real platform for acceleration. We can provide this to other ag tech startups and other existing players onto the field in order to get their technology into the hands of farmers. Because we can bring in data from a large number of systems, farmers can make better decisions because they're not relying on data from a single, making a decision from a single data point, but they can bring in data from across multiple systems. Aggregation in the ag tech space is brand new. This is a green field and there aren't many competitors currently out there. But at the same time, this has global potential. That agriculture is a key component of so many countries' industries because they have to feed their own people. And the underlying technology can easily be adopted to other industries that are facing similar problems. Our current status is that we've developed a prototype, but we're seeking $25,000 for a sprint in order to build our MVP and establish our initial partners. Our business model is a Netflix-style subscription fee of around $15 a month, and initially we're looking at a 5% share of the 85,000 farmers. In the future, we'd also be looking at a vendor subscription in order to do that integration work. The team is myself, Ben, and Rob. We've all got over a decade working in technology and implementing that, and so we can bring this to market quite easily. So that's Kelpie, the digital working dog.
Thank you. Judges, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Tim. My question is around privacy, in particular around sharing between apps. How does that work? How do you approach that between the other apps? And I assume that the way it works is that you hook into their API and then it comes through to your app. So just talk me through privacy of data.
We're not kind of planning on storing the actual data that's getting communicated, rather than we're just facilitating the transaction between the two systems. So Kelpie kind of sits in the middle and acts as a bit of a translator. It takes that data and then kind of delivers it to the farmer, then they can make that decision and return back. So yeah, we're not kind of touching too much of that actual data, more just the transactional things.
And have you spoken to the other apps that it wants to interact with and what's been their reaction?
Look, we've had a few conversations, in particular with the startup apps, because what we're offering them is an interface, so they don't actually have to go away and build a whole app for themselves and the cost that's involved in that. We can kind of offset a lot of those costs. The big players might feel a little bit different on that, but we're willing to kind of have those discussions, and different parts of the industry are ready to kind of have those conversations now.
Yeah, a great presentation, thank you. I'm interested in, you're quite early. What validation have you got from the marketplace that they, A, have this need as being real, and B, are happy to jump onto this app rather than the native app that they've found useful so far?
Look, as part of this, we've been working on this for about a year, kind of validating this. We've spoken to a lot of farmers to talk about what were the actual problems. And Kelpie in its form today isn't kind of where we started a year ago. And so we've had a lot of conversations with farmers, but also when we show people from the industry what we are capable of doing, they do recognise that the problem that we have is real, and that they're not getting that adoption, and that they kind of understand where we're coming from. So I think when we've spoken to the actual people doing the job and having the problems, they kind of feel validated that we're actually responding to what they need, not just bringing another piece of technology to the market.
Do we have any further questions? No? Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Next up, we have Taito.
Hi everyone. My name's Nick Lothian, and I've spent the past 20 years working in software development and machine learning to get to the point where I can talk about this company I'm bringing it to you today. We've got a mission. We want to democratise software development. Software development's a big industry, $145 billion a year in 2017, and that's growing. But this is slow and it's expensive. Anyone who's worked in software engineering or tried to get some software developed knows that they spend too much money on it. So much software gets thrown away because it's the wrong thing. So there is a solution for this, AI for software development. Big companies are already doing this. So Google's new machine translation system cut their translation code from 500,000 lines of code to only 500. It supports more languages. And when they shipped it, the increase in quality in that single release was greater than that increase in quality over the past 10 years of having Google engineers working on the system. But at the moment, the winners from this change are only the big companies. Only companies like Google, Apple, and Facebook can afford the huge PhD workforce to deploy these kinds of systems. Genevieve talked about this a bit this morning, and it's a real risk. So at Taito AI, we're trying to take this problem on. We're building software to allow real people to build software. So our first release, coming up later this month, is a simple program that lets anyone build a mobile data collection app on their phone. They can use the sensors on their phone to collect things like GPS location, barcodes, or just camera pictures. So they can draw a picture of what they want it to look like, take a photo, generates a template, add the fields using their voice or typing it in. So what we're doing here is we're building a simple stocktake app, sped up a little bit, but in under 2 minutes, you can have a fully native application ready to deploy in iOS App Store and in the Google Store. So to understand the impact of this, we need to talk a little bit about the software development industry. Over this side, we have really simple things that people often don't think of as software development tools. Things like SurveyMonkey. And up here, we have the software development tools that they use to build things like the operating system for fighter jets. What Taito AI does is it lets people who currently can use these simple tools build more complex software. And we capture the value as they move up that chain. And these are big markets. Even this form builder market, SurveyMonkey, Typeform, and players like that, is worth at least $250 million a year. And SurveyMonkey itself is looking to IPO next year at $2 billion. So who'd pay for this? We're already in testing right now in Africa with a company called Lorry Systems. They track logistics all across Africa, challenging conditions. So they deal with things like this, where the containers go missing, they have to send people out to find out what went wrong. At the moment, the process is they use WhatsApp and send photos back, emails, and people consolidate all that data into Excel. Information goes missing, so it's not just the containers that are getting lost. What we can do is we've built them an app that they're using right now to collect the same data straight into one single database, and they're no longer losing the data. We can't help with the containers though. So we've got 200 plus customers already registered to use it, and we've got a business model that makes sense. We start at $30 a month to bring people onto the system, and we'll move up to enterprise plans that include integration into their back-end systems from $2,000 a month. So what are we looking for? Well, the most important thing It's last on this list. Evangelists and advice. We want people who need to use this app now, and I know lots of you have talked to me about it previously. We want to talk to you about it. We want to understand the needs that you have and what would it take to get you to use it. We're also looking for investment. We've raised a small round back in February from H2, but we're aiming to expand our team. So we need the money. We're releasing the product this month, but we're looking to hire for growth. This is a feature race. There are other companies in this space that are doing similar things, and it's going to come down to who can meet the customer demand the quickest. We plan to win that here in Adelaide. Thanks very much.
Well done. Do we have any questions?
Sorry, can you just expand a little bit on what you would do at the next stage with the development funding?
Yeah, sure. So we have a roadmap that's quite long, and I say that all plans are great until they meet customers, but it's great to plan. So we've got a set of features that we need to deliver. Most of them are designed around the people that we've already talked to, and that sort of takes us to the December timeframe of a list of features after this June initial release. There's stuff on the back end around data analysis, because I come from that background, and I think there's a lot that we can do there to automate the data analysis as they bring it in, and we can capture a lot of value there.
So you've demonstrated in your demo that you can, that someone can simply sketch out a UI and cobble together an app quickly. What I'm missing right now is how does that person who builds that app submit to the Apple iTunes App Store or to the Google Play Store and get them to approve that app?
Yeah, so we've got two different models here. One, we have an app runner model where we ship an application that they enter a code or log into that gives them access to the applications that they have access to. This also includes the designer, so there's a viral component to that. Anyone who's running the app can design their own apps. Secondly, the same code can be turned into an actual native app. It actually is an actual native app that we can submit for them on their behalf. But that is a thing that costs extra for them. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Nick. Congrats, first of all, on getting to 200 customers. I think it's good just to,
Well, they're registered, but yes.
You've got it going.
Yeah.
What have you learnt from them? Are they hanging around? Are they continuing to pay?
So,
Are they dropping out?
to be clear, they're pre-registered. We haven't released. They're not using it at the moment. We're in discussions with a lot of them. So the typical thing that we learn from them is the types of applications they want to build. Most of them at the moment are doing what they want to do with the app right now by using manual processing. So they take photos, generally, or perhaps we've got people who are writing down barcodes out in the field and then sending them back via instant messenger and putting them into Excel. This isn't like really high-level software development, but it's real need, and they just can't afford the $5,000 or they don't have the budget to build an app for it. So we want to take those sets of apps. $30 a month isn't a big ask for them, and just hit that need for them straight away.
And where are you finding most of them? How are they finding out about you?
Yeah, so we don't have a systematic way to find it. It has been mostly personal connections at the moment. However, people do seem to tell other people about it, and the list that I have is surprisingly large, and most of them I don't know. When people see it, they sort of go, oh, can I do this? And they're quite interested to find it. I'm very much aware we need to scale that up, but I'm also aware that at the moment I'm concentrating on getting the release out, and then the plan is to scale up customer acquisition.
Do we have any more questions? No? Thank you very much. Thanks. And last but not least, we have Verbalize Science. Welcome to the stage.
Hello, my name is Dr. Andrew Stapleton, and I'm the founder of Verbalize.science. We want to be the scientist-friendly way to extract the value in scientific discoveries and peer-reviewed papers. This is the team that I'm working with. We've got a range of diverse skills, experts in software development, business management, AI, and the cutest morale and ball expert you have ever seen. We've got a great team of advisors, and they have enabled us to come very far in a short period of time, and for that we are incredibly grateful. Now, the problem is, peer-reviewed research is disgusting to read. It is full of field-specific terminology, dense with technical findings that are not easy to digest by the general public, but let alone anyone else that's even slightly outside of that field. So what I mean is the value of a lot of peer-reviewed papers are just simply not being unlocked. There are 2.5 million peer-reviewed papers published every year, and at Verbalize.science, we think we're the key to unlocking that value. Now, I want to share a little story with you. During my PhD, I was tasked with making the seemingly impossible possible. I was in the lab, it was late one night, it was probably a Saturday or Sunday, 10 p.m., working away, doing the same series of experiments that I'd been doing for the past 3 years. But this time, something amazing happened. It worked. I was so excited, I rushed out to my supervisor, we high-fived, we hugged, and this is a big deal, scientists don't hug. I rushed home via the bottle shop to my partner, and I bought the most inexpensive, best wine I could on my PhD salary, and we drank it, and she was excited for me. I couldn't wait to tell the world. But how did I tell the world? This paper. And the world did not get excited. I might as well have done this into an empty room. The solution is surprisingly simple. If you sort of sit down with a peer-reviewed paper, it can take hours to extract the value. One simple phone call or conversation with a scientist, over 5 minutes, you know exactly what they've done, why they did it, and where they're going. And I found an opportunity to productize that conversation. So I've developed a web application. You can go there now. Verbalize.science is live. It's an MVP where we offer a guided interview to scientists. Now, they answer 4 questions that have been carefully curated by industry experts, science communicators, and veteran journalists to extract the value from their peer-reviewed paper. We edit for narrative and content. If the value that the person wants to unlock is at an institution, they may go, this is a great story, we want this on our front page. We can do the editive and narrative editing. So that means we're unlocking the value in terms of a marketing. We can actually enter their marketing and strategic communication plan. We provide a multimedia package around each peer-reviewed paper, which then they can use to make themselves look great or unlock potential collaborations with industry, but essentially unlocking the value from something that would otherwise just go online. Now the question is, who would pay for this? A lot of the lab mentors were like, great idea, Andy, you look nice, but where's the money coming from? And the fact is, people are paying to get peer-reviewed research into the public domain. But what they're not doing is they're not paying for it to be demystified so that we can unlock the value. So, to get peer-reviewed papers into the general population, it's between $1,000 to $3,000. That's a $12 billion opportunity that we want to take advantage of. Our business model is we offer institutions a subscription service where they get access to a dashboard, an asset snapshot. Scientists get $400 for a multimedia package. We're testing the market at this amount, and they're paying it, and we're already doing this. At the moment, we're testing in SA. With the money, I want to improve customer acquisition and test our research dashboard for the institutions. We want to grow into across institutes across Australia and eventually end up internationally and go into corporate R&D. A vote for Verbalize Science today is a vote for the future, a future where the potential and the value of research is unlocked. And let's make the future awesome together. Thank you very much.
As the editor of a science and technology website, my thank you is so sincere. Judges, do we have any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
A number of issues came up in the talks this morning. Trustworthiness.
Absolutely.
Particularly if you're working on 4 questions.
Yeah. So what we actually do is, as scientists log on to our application, we actually vet them to make sure that it's peer-reviewed paper they're talking about, which means that it's already been checked by their peers for credibility. And also we make sure that they're part of an institution so that we can make sure that no one that's pushing a perpetual motion machine is going to end up on our platform.
Can I just sort of push that a little bit further?
Absolutely, yes.
And just say, when you get down to 4 questions,
Yep.
things can shift. I mean, you might have had your peer group review
Yep.
and covered all of that in a scientific sense. But once you're bringing it into plain English and making the story quite short, I guess that's my concern about that bridge.
Absolutely. So we've actually run this with a few scientists and institutions, and what we found is that they've not shifted far from what they're talking about in the peer-reviewed studies. It's just not in their nature. Scientists, in fact, are incredibly cautious beings, and they've tended to hold back. What the issue is when they hand that story to someone else, other people run with it, so the media run with it, but in fact scientists have been surprisingly sort of reserved when it comes to overstating their facts, and in fact we give them the opportunity to change their narrative if they feel like they've overstated something.
Thanks, Andrew. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
So just to clarify the model, so it's free for anyone to watch or listen to the content?
Absolutely.
And the scientist is the one who paid to put the content up there?
Yeah, so what we're really careful with institutions that some of the value that they can unlock is actually IP. So that is not publicly available until the institution goes, actually, this makes us look great, we want to push it to the world. All of our content is available 3.0 Creative Commons, which means that bloggers, podcasters, community radio can actually use it for free, which is part of that social aspect of explaining science.
Great, and one extra question is, what's an example of one of the 4 questions that you ask?
Yeah, sure. So we ask, when we first started it, we were like, okay, scientists, did it go to plan, right? And they've never been asked that. They've been asked like, what was the method? So what we're actually interested in is teasing out the narrative from each of the 4 aspects. We've got what's new, background and significance, but we don't ask it like that. We ask it in a very conversational way, and we encourage the scientists to talk, as if they're talking to their 12-year-old brother, sister, whoever, family member. So the questions are designed to tease out the narrative and not just the facts.
Great presentation, by the way, and great concept. I'm interested in how we get this thing outside the echo chamber, which is the scientists talking to the science community.
Absolutely. So,
and so what's your kind of broader customer acquisition strategy for users of the content? Because it seems to me that one of the great issues between industry and science, or industry and universities, is they don't understand each other, and yet they want to. And this seems to me to have almost the makings of some potential to be a communications platform.
Absolutely. So what we've done is, in terms of let's go for the silo aspect. What we do is, Owen, our AI and data expert, he's actually analysing each paper that's uploaded for sentiment and content. And our eventual goal is to then connect researchers that would have never been connected because they're actually talking about a similar thing. And also we can align them with government research priorities and say, hey, you guys would actually work really well together. You've just never met. And that's the ultimate goal. And so we really want to break down those silos. In terms of the industry aspect, we've talked to a number of industry partners, and they're actually saying, send us the information. We'll sign up to your email list, send us the information, we can trawl through it, or, they're really interested. It's in plain language for them. So, yeah, there's a lot of interest in that.
Do we have any further questions from the judges? No? Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was the last of our pitches today, and the judges do have some very tough decisions to make. But for now, could I please welcome Robert Tursek back up onto the stage? You'll remember him from this morning.
Thank you, you did an excellent job. That was awfully nice for Ray to host this whole event. It gave me a good break, and I got a chance to participate as a judge. I want to thank everybody for coming here and spending the entire day with us. We have a great lineup for you tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock. I hope to see you back here again early on. We'll begin with Andrei Shakur, who's come all the way from Helsinki to tell us about the Finnish miracle. It's a really relevant story for the folks here in South Australia. It might not make sense to you now, but I guarantee tomorrow you'll understand how that small country has focused on technology innovation and an export economy, so don't miss that. Following that, we have a suite of companies from South Australia, principally, who are going to show you export-ready technologies that we believe are bigger than Adelaide and bigger than Australia.
technologies that can scale to global presence. So don't miss tomorrow. It's a great, great lineup that we've got. And I think we're on for drinks now. Amanda, is there a cocktail reception coming up? Super. Okay, so we, the judges, have a little bit of deliberation to do. It's going to take us a while, but while we're doing that, there will be drinks outside for everybody who sticks around. Please do, because at 5:30 we will be announcing the winners of the Hybrid World Innovation Lab. So thank you, and thank you to everybody that participated in the lab this weekend and all the mentors who are still here. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all tomorrow.